go to the next person. That is Bart Simons from AnySurfer. Bart, could you?
Yeah, thank you. The question was, are there any benefits for people with disabilities in this web accessibility chapter? I think the answer is yes, we wouldn't be here. If we take a step back, at least in Belgium, everything is becoming digital. You're supposed to do your banking online, you can do your taxes online, you can shop online. If you want to buy a house, you find most of the announcements on the web, and at least most up-to-date on the web. This is great that everything's becoming digital, because the analog world, before we had the internet, was for the most part very inaccessible for people with disabilities. We needed help to fill out any paper form, because everybody with limited handwriting, being partially sighted or being motor disabled, had problems filling out forms, couldn't do it by themselves. All information in leaflets or newspapers or mail, in post mail, everything had to be read by a sighted person to the blind person. So you are very independent. It's very dependent on other people in the analog world. So everything's becoming digital. Very good starting point. There's a huge potential of digital world to give people independence and to be inclusive. And inclusive is one of the 3 I's in this acronym of the EIII project. So I like very much the word inclusion there. But way too often this accessibility is forgotten, and then we miss this huge possibility of everything going digital. The potential of being the solution for all these analog problems is not really materializing if we forget accessibility. And even though, as people with disabilities, as older people, we need to do the same things as people without disabilities and younger people. We also need to deposit our taxes. We also need to do the banking. And if the offline channels are going to disappear, there will be no alternative than do it via the digital way. And we're very keen to do it, but then they must be accessible. We can complain as users with disabilities. We can, after being frustrated, we can turn it into something positive and try to contact the website, explain that there is a problem, justify why we need this problem to be fixed, explain often because they have no clue what to do. So it's a little bit frustrating to have to do this justification and to ask for adaptations that should have been logic, and still there is a lot of work to do to tell people what accessibility is. I still too often receive invitations by email that are just one picture. And then, okay, I can answer to that person, sorry, this is not accessible, can you please send me a text file? And then, of course, they will do it. They are not rude or anything. But it's, in the end, if you always have to ask for it, it's a bit sad. I would hope that in 2015 we would have done more education and more people would realize what it really means, and I would love to have to complain a little bit less in the future. Thanks.
Thank you, Bart. Any questions so far from the audience? Go on to Bárbara.
Well, what I'm going to say is going to be very complementary to what Bart has just said. I hope you are open-minded and ready to work for a while. It would be easy, don't worry. First of all, I'm going to give you some key figures that I think that is good that we have all them in mind. We are talking about of the European Union, which means more than 500 million citizens. 85 of them are people with disabilities, and 30 of them are blind or partially sighted. So this means there are a lot of people here that are unable to access to everyday goods and services in a proper manner as the rest. So this really worries me a lot, because EU equals single market, and something's wrong here because it's not working the way it should work. This morning was mentioned the UN Convention. Everybody knows in the room what it is. I would like to insist on two things, which are the implementation and the enforcement. Implementation, the EU is working. We have now the observation of the committee recently, and I think the EU is going to take very good note of it and is going to work as hard and as fast as they can to manage and deal with it and to make sure that the convention applies and at the end people with disabilities get at the same level of the rest of the citizens. So new technologies, what can I say about them? They bring enormous beneficial to people with disabilities. That's something we cannot say, what are you talking about? But then when I think of the internet, which is not really a technology itself, it's more than a network, it's like this is the real revolution. I would say it's like the revolution of the 20th century. I'm talking about revolution because thanks to the internet, it makes possible for blind and partially sighted people in particular to access to the same information at the same time and with the same facilities as the rest of the world. That's great, as Bart said, but we need something here, which is accessible part. Many things have been done with the accessibility, and we really appreciate that, and we really see the effort of the industry, but many things have to be done and keep on doing, because if not, it's, like I said before, citizens, normal citizens, just because they are blind or hearing problems or with cognitive problems, they cannot access to the information, normal information as the rest of the world, of Europe in particular. So here comes the little exercise that I want you to think of. It's going to be very easy. Let's imagine one of your days, you wake up and you have to go to work, and you have to take your train. What you do, you watch your mail, you see your smartphone, you see the schedule of your train, you go to the train station, you buy in a touch screen machine your ticket, you see the sign, you look for where you have to go, you get into the train, and you have to see where the next stop is, and then you decide when you have to get off the train. Meanwhile, what you do, your tablet, your phone, while you're sleepy, or if you are in a hurry and you need to do many things, you can start reading the news. If not, you go to the social media and see what's going on there. Maybe you can see that Rick Astley is still on, and he was in Madrid yesterday. And if not, you can see, well, I need to buy that ticket for that movie I was waiting for. And if not, you decide that you need to check that bank list of things to make sure that no cent is taken of you from your bank. So the only thing you need is line coverage and battery. And if you have those two things, you are perfect, and you are very lucky. You get off the train, you have done everything you wanted, you were using your time very properly, and you go to work. That's fine. But now imagine you have a blindfolder. Would it be the same? Not at all, I can tell you. You, first of all, I'm going to change the order of the things I have just said, okay? If you are in the train station, then you have to ask for help to buy your ticket in this machine, because it normally doesn't speak. The technology exists, but well, they don't use it. Once you have helped, you need to ask for help again to let you know where you have to go, because you don't see the side sign. Once you are in the train, there are no announcements telling you which is the next stop. So you have to count them because you know already by memory, or if you are distracted, you have to ask, could you please tell me where we are because I need to get off. Well, you go to your work, and then the normal thing is use your computer. Would you use your computer without seeing anything? Without talking to your computer? Not at all. And if it did, which could happen, of course, then you decide that you need to go to the internet to do your work. But now you discover that more than 90% of the web pages are not accessible. Once again, you cannot do the same things other people can do. So it's quite uncomfortable, isn't it? And then about your mobile phone, it's like, well, you cannot do that because you don't know, or maybe you don't know how to use it, but you don't know that your mobile could speak to tell you what's going on in the screen and let you know what's going on in Madrid with Rick Astley. So I think this simple example, a daily example, I mean, it's nothing weird, nothing made up just for this moment, made me thought about three main conclusions. One of them is that we really need to think of, from the Commission, to take into consideration the accessibility in apps. I can tell you that normally we use more the mobile phone or tablets to access to the internet than the normal computer. This means that things are already being designed easier. I mean, they are easy. Apps are more comfortable to use because you have to search things, and the way it is done, it's easier than the other way. In fact, I can tell you that in Spain we have very good examples of accessible apps in very different fields, such as the Spanish dictionary, such as the Metro ground in Madrid, such as a rail company at national level, such as where you have to find the information of your medical things. So this means that accessibility is possible. It's some mix of political will and some kind of industrial point of view. And I would like to insist in this point because living accessibility of apps would mean that you are leaving people with disabilities once again behind in the 21st century. There's no way to think of this, at least from my point of view, if I may say. The second conclusion would be that it's obvious that, as Bart said before, we need to access to public services. We don't care if it's provided by a national, regional, local authority, but we need to access to education, to social affairs, to employment, to many things because we are citizens. And again, with this debate from public and private that Inmaculada Plasencia mentioned this morning before, it's important and very relevant to understand that even though the services are provided by a private company, if they are of public interest, they need to be accessible as well. I'm referring to transport, water, postal services. I mean, is our daily things to do. I mean, there's no way we get out of this. And finally, I would say that I would insist on the idea of the being accessible, save money to industries. Why? Many reasons. I mean, I'm not an expert in here, but I can think of many reasons. But the one obvious and easy one is that if you make your web pages accessible from the very beginning, you won't need to make another channel specifically for people with disabilities, whether they are blind, with hearing problems, cognitive problems, or old people. If you do it from the very beginning for all, you get from once at the same time all done. So I think these conclusions are very relevant, and again, I would like to insist on the idea that we need to refer accessibility not only to disability and old people, but also to the industry, because e-commerce represents a lot of money and a lot of activities. We are talking about the internal market in Europe, and this is a huge thing. Thank you.
Okay, so we're here about the challenges for the user perspective. And what I hear here is that the user perspective brings you money. So older users are a market. And I hear that it makes people more independent. And I hear that there's, well, money is I think one of the most important arguments to get people going. Well, maybe my idea in life, but yeah. But at the same time, I note from earlier today and from this discussion that there are challenges for this user perspective. So users are not taken into account with all these, with all the things you described. And users want to live independently, to participate in sports, education, work, without having to ask people all the time, buy a ticket for me, or do my banking, or what's this in the tax account form. And the other side you're saying is you're leaving a tremendous amount of money lying around. So if this money is there, then why isn't this happening? Can I ask you as a panel first? Why are you sitting here and hasn't this happened in the past 10 years?
I guess one of the reasons is industry, they are hard worker and they want to go and get money. And it's been very hard to make them understand that people with disabilities are representing the 15% of the population in Europe. But they keep on insisting on statistics and data. And then we have, this circle around us that is, well, there are no data. We can know, unfortunately, we are now getting some kind of data, and we are working for that, as this morning was discussed. But industry focused all the time in this part. So I have been in many meetings with industry in many sectors, like digital television or many others. And for them, this thing is hard to understand. And I mean, I can give them many examples, but they just, at the end, the bottom line is, well, give me your numbers, and then I will study. I will change my chain of manufacturing my things. Is that sad?